every day and say your affirmations. Go. Wake up every day and say your affirmations. Go. Wake up every day and say your affirmations. Go. Wake up every day and say your affirmations. Go. Happiness and kindness is a choice. Make up.
I still don't see it.
Well, it's connected
Okay, wait a
on,
minute.
so
There it is. There it is.
yeah, I'm gonna say it should
I
be.
was, yeah, I'm like, what's going on?
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, this will be the official one that we download and upload to Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. I want to thank everyone for jumping in on tonight's live. This is Things That People Don't Want to Talk About, brought to you by me, God Level. My name is Renee. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a mother. I'm a nurse. I'm a friend. I'm an aunt. I'm a cousin. I have this podcast. I'm an entrepreneur. I am everything good. John, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Name is John Skywalker, the Sly Talker, lyricist, spoken word artist, martial artist, personal trainer, lover of life, student of psychology, and I am a father who has 4 hip-hop albums circulating on all major streaming platforms. Tidal, Apple, Amazon Music, Pandora. If you can stream it, I'm probably there. John Skywalker, look him up.
Diamond, you want to go ahead and represent yourself?
Hetepu family, I am Sin Sabah Diamin, entrepreneur, owner, and founder of the Abode of Osar Institute of Personal Excellence. I'm also a counselor and life coach, and also a creator of courses that benefit mankind of human living to bring understanding to our lives. So be on the lookout for all of that. And as always, I am always of service and salute.
Oh, thank you. I have a couple of orders that are waiting to be shipped out. I'll ship them out tomorrow that I got that were
What?
bought over the weekend. Yes, they were
What?
bought over the weekend. One girl bought 2 hats, Miss Amanda. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. So they're sitting over there. Yeah, I know. I got up this morning early after, wait a minute, I can't say this morning. I got off work this morning at 8 o'clock. By the time I made it home, it was about 8 o'clock. Took a nap and woke up and got everything together. So yeah, I'm happy to have everything I need in this little space to do what I need to do. So tonight's topic is conflict resolution, exploring conflict resolution. Yeah, John, you can go ahead and kick this one off.
Kick this one off. Let's just start off with that question. Let's just
What
start
does
off.
it mean? Yeah, what is it?
What is it? What does it mean?
Conflict resolution is a way for 2 or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement among them. The disagreement, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. The disagreement may be personal, financial, political, or emotional. When a dispute arises, often the best course of action is negotiation to resolve the disagreement.
Okay. All right.
Blessings,
Saba?
family. Blessings to you too. This is a learning. It's going to be learning for all of us.
Oh yeah. Me especially. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a process, right? And we are talking about,
Definitely is.
yeah, it's a process, but we're also referring to it as a skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a vehicle in which we repair our relationships, right?
Okay.
So it's a skill, it's a talent, right? And it involves all these activities, these processes. It's mental, it's emotional, right?
Right.
So we're trying to repair our relationships, presuming that they're valuable to us. And of course, that implies a lot of assumptions, right? But as I'm saying, I definitely need this. I care
Mm-hmm.
about my relationships. My conflict resolution skills are like my insurance policy.
Okay.
And
That's
no
the
matter
first
how
thing.
good, and no matter how well I think I'm doing with my conflict resolution skills, I always see a weakness. So I'm like, oh, I need to do better at this. I reflect on my arguments and my debates and my disputes. I reflect, like, I don't like confrontation like that, right? A lot of people don't. So it behooves me to really pay attention to these processes. Like, all right, I have a problem in my relationship with this person. I care about this person, but at the moment, this is bothering me. My stress levels are high, yada, yada, yada. I feel wounded. Nothing physical happened, but I feel wounded. They feel wounded. What do I do? This is a problem. What do we do about this, right? And so throughout the history of me having relationships, it's always been an intentional thing to improve on that, on my ability to repair my relationships. Because I've had some quote unquote failed relationships, but I look at those and I say, was that me? Did I contribute to that? In order for me to improve myself. So I value this topic because it's essentially the insurance policy that I'm always in practice of, and I don't mind getting a dose of knowledge and wisdom from my tribe here to help me improve. So
I say,
I need to, when certain situation arises, I need to learn the pause.
important.
ooh,
Very important to the pause. Woo,
mhm.
baby.
We could
Before
talk
the
about what that
reaction.
pause is too. That pause is
Yep.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I need to figure out a way to count 1 to 10 before I see something that triggers me and snap out. Yeah, the pause. So yeah, I learned that this week or last
Hmm.
week. So,
Mm.
oh, hey
Ooh.
Marquita, thanks for watching. Hey Shelly, thanks for watching. Hey Love Sean, thanks for watching. Hey Dre, thanks for watching. Feel free to share on your page. We would love that. And feel free to call in. We would love to hear from you all.
That pause slows the intensity down, right? It's like a buffer, right? So just think of like when we're fuming and venting and going, right? Ruminating and expressing, right? Gushing it out there. When you pause, it slows that down. Because also what's happening is there's several biological processes going on. Your stress level's rising, your heart rate is rising, right? That pause gives you the opportunity to slow all that down so that you don't overheat, overload, and it doesn't become too excessive. You don't want to have a meltdown, right? So there's like a regulator in there using that pause intentionally, at least.
Hmm. Yeah. So that one thing I always tell my clients when I'm working on them with conflict resolution is several stages of realization that we got to go through. First of all, what is the conflict? What's the conflict? Because what we have to resolve. Why is the conflict there? And they may think it's because of the actions of the other, but the conflict is there is because of the emotional element that's there. It's not what's being done, it's how it's perceived. So that's the first thing that I work with them on is let's change our perception. You know, and there are several methods which need to come in play in order to change your perception. First of all, it's like what you said, John. That's the first step is you have to care about the relationship. And if you truly care, so when I ask them, do you really care about this relationship? Of course, their answer would be, yes, I care about this. Because of course they don't want to be the villain. Because if you say you don't care about it, you could be the problem. If you say you
Mm,
don't care about it, right? So they're going to say, yeah, I care about it. So good. Now you give them something to work with because you said you care about it. But yet you allow it to get here. Your actions and your perception and your reactions get you here. Does this say that you care about the relationship? I always tell them, I say, you have to think of the relationship. And we use what's called a Venn diagram. And that's the diagram where you have, the two circles that overlap. One side you have one of the parties, the other side is the other parties, and where the circles overlap, that's your relationship. And there are aspects of your shortcomings that's only okay on either of your sides, but it's not okay in that overlapping. You see, so you have to protect the relationship like it's an infant, like it's a baby. And what you're protecting it from is yourself. But you have to be honest with yourself of what your own shortcomings, of your weaknesses when it comes to these things, your emotional weaknesses, your emotional tendency to blow things out of proportion. Because this is what people don't realize. Sometimes it could be over something as simple as he made my sandwich wrong, or uh, you know, oh, I was sleeping and she made a noise that woke me up, and it starts this big argument. Said, but in you, I said that emotional uprising that's causing the conflict is the same as if somebody was trying to kill you. Same hormones are going through your body, the same parts of your brain are being lit up at that time. And it's like somebody's trying to kill you. Do you think that the person is a threat to you in that way, to where they're trying to take your life? And of course, they would say, well, no. Okay, that means you're overreacting. Can you admit that you're overreacting? So that's the first thing always to, yeah. So that's the first thing, is to realize, that the part that you play in this conflict that we're trying to resolve. Okay, that's the first thing. And so once they do, and then we take several other steps, which I'll get into as we go, because I don't want to jump the gun and shorten our podcast here. But the main parts about this conflict resolution, when I tell them, is that in order not to get here, and I'm talking about that pause, right? Learning how to take that pause. That pause is where it seems like when we overstep that pause, within that space of that pause is our IQ points. And if we don't take the pause, we're also negating our IQ points. So the intelligent quotient goes down in the face of emotional uprising, right? So they're inversely proportionate, right? So you have these animal instincts that are taking over, and intellect and the ability for reasoning is actually going down. So now you're about to act like an animal to somebody you claim you love. You're about to act like an animal. They deserve better than that, right? So the thing is that when you take that pause, then you allow yourself to retain your IQ points. But also, you have to remember that this is a person you love, and this is a relationship that you love and enjoy. You have to remember that. And if you don't remember it, then you're going to end up doing something to only satisfy yourself. And you're going to automatically throw the relationship to the side. When you do that, then you put everything in jeopardy. You put it all in jeopardy. So then you can't say, your actions doesn't line up with what you said. If you said that you care about the relationship, your actions are not lining up with it. So that's the first thing, is we got to get to a point to where we admit that we're not capable of resolving this conflict. But one thing I do want to say, that I've heard many people say it's a skill. They say it's a talent and things like that. It is a learned. I would say it's a learned behavior. The only reason why I don't want to say skill and talent, because it sounds like it's being reserved for certain people. But everybody's capable of conflict resolution. Everybody's
Oh,
capable of it. You
there you
see?
go.
So it's a
That out there.
behavioral, it's behavioral thing. So it's so you can control your behavior, and this is what it's all about. And the only reason why I speak on things like this is because that's what I had to do in order to improve my life and my relationships. Because I lost more than I have now, okay? Because of my
Mm,
own reactions, because of that. So I figured out quickly that it was me. It wasn't them. It wasn't. And even then, I could validate my actions by saying, well, he did this and she did that and blah, so it caused me to do this. When I'm saying that, I'm inadvertently admitting that I'm not in control. My ego won't let me admit that, but it is true. not in control.
Damn.
So my goal there now is to regain and reclaim control. And the only person that lost it, it wasn't that somebody was having control over me. I just threw control out the window. It was my choice. It was my choice.
You're
So
hinting at the self-awareness element
Yeah.
here as
oh
well,
man, it's
right?
Yeah.
that's a big element.
It's a
That's a
big
big
thing.
element. Yeah.
Because it's there as the medium that it answers the question of how do I know what to do? You don't even
Mm,
know, you can't know what to do or how to be without the self-awareness, right? So
mm-hmm.
you were aware that, hey, I am being this way, and then you were able to evaluate that. For a lot of us, we don't even want to look at ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, you have to grow tired of ruining relationships, but you also have to understand that this is life. Life is going to come with these challenges,
Mhm,
challenges that we have to suffer through until
mhm,
we learn how to transcend or conquer those challenges. And
mhm,
it took me a while because you know how a lot of religions say that in it the gateway to heaven or to peace is we have to go through suffering. And I
mhm,
say no, 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 not suffering, but is that not what we do when we're in the gym though, John? We kind of suffer, especially when we increase the reps, when we increase the weight. We're trying to find ways that makes us suffer because in that suffering we also evolve. We get stronger. We become
agree.
more. We increase in our endurance.
Mhm,
Increase our neuromuscular communication. So it's through that struggle, through that suffering, that we grow. So then I began to understand it. So I didn't really realize how deep that wisdom was. I had to sit with that and like, yeah, this is
mhm,
something I always do. I suffer through it until I can transcend it. You know, but
mhm,
that's life. In fact, our relationships, it comes to teach us the most about who we are. You know, it teaches us the
Say
most
that.
about who we are.
Say
mhm,
that.
I even have my students. The first thing that they have to do is resolve the conflicts of relationships in their own lives, whether with their
mhm,
family, with their significant others, with their friends, what have you. If you got people in your life, then you're still struggling with conflicting, button heads up, resolve it. And of course, I spend a great deal of time giving them all the tools to do it. So absolutely. So I'm gonna stop there for now. If you guys have anything you want to throw in,
This
um,
John show.
oh no, no, it's not
no, no.
John's show. This is not
Don't be
John's
out there like that.
show.
Don't throw me out there like that. Yeah, this is John's show. I'm learning. I didn't had an incident this week that tested me, and
Tell me about
also
that.
Yeah, let's do it.
no, I want.
Because I've had one. I've had a couple. I had a
I had
few.
a situation that tested me this week, and um, I guess I would say I failed horribly at it, but
Mm,
Hmm.
ultimately I made a very important decision behind it. So yeah,
Hmm.
all right, so let's break that part down. All right, you called it a failure, right?
I call it a failure because I didn't pause. I just instantly went there.
Hmm.
Instantly, it was instant. Like I seen it, I was triggered. Whoa, I went there.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
everything happens for a reason. But after that, I made a very important decision. So I was like, okay,
Being able to reflect back on that experience, though,
yeah,
Hmm.
that's what we mean, right? That's part of the
yeah.
process,
So and like,
Yeah,
right? An
absolutely.
event happens, and sometimes you're not at that space to just
no,
resolve it in that moment. And so sometimes,
mm,
yeah, there needs to be like a delay, allow
mhm,
everything that so here
yeah,
the emotional aspect, right? The
yeah,
stressful. So boom, stimulus. And then it's like, all right, hey, we got to come down before we strategically and intentionally
yeah.
respond, not react. But
I react.
before we do anything to
I
cause any more
reacted.
damage, oh yeah,
Hmm.
so there was an initial reaction,
That was just that's all it was.
right?
Reaction. I didn't even
Complete
pause.
reaction.
I just snapped. Yeah, it was just complete
Hmm.
reaction. It was just a
It was
complete
all
reaction.
reflex.
There was a reaction on my end, then that person reacted.
Of course.
So now here
Any
we are.
reaction?
You over there and I'm over here. So that's
Mm.
it. That's we'll talk about it later. We'll
No,
go
no,
into
but
this.
see, that's what this today's show is about, though. It's going through that
Yeah,
process
but
of.
but when I'm ready to share, I will share.
Okay. So we don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all
When I'm
right.
ready to share, I will
I'll
share.
throw in a segue then, because I'll sample mine, and
Okay, go
again,
right ahead.
this show is also inspired by our previous one about the Black family, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how conflict resolution skills are vital to maintaining our relationships. So that would
Yeah.
include our family, right?
Mm.
So looking at my family affair, right? I've had a series of conflicts with my family. And one in particular that I probably pay the most to nowadays is my parent-child relationships, right? Because I'm like super um, passionate about modeling the conflict resolution behaviors to them, right? Because it's like, yo, that's an investment, and that investment leads to having those fruitful, healthy relationships. So when you recognize that the next generation family doesn't even have that, it's like, all right, you can give them all this money and all these material possessions, generational wealth, but you haven't taught them how to maintain relationships, which are probably going to outlast those circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm.
I pay attention to how I'm handling conflict with my kids these days. So one in particular was Solomon, right? He has ADHD, and that's a stressor in and of itself, right? He has to live with that, and one of my responsibilities is to help him to develop those behaviors that are going to mitigate those forces. He's got some intrapsychic forces that we on the outside world don't have any control over. So I have to instill in him, a way of thinking, a mindset, so that he can manage his behaviors, right? And this one particular incident, I was so upset. I was so mad. It wasn't about the actual item. And so that's another aspect of our conflict is, what are we really arguing about? Sometimes the surface item is really just that. It's a surface item, and it was a trigger, right? So my son has the tendency to take my tools and not return them back. And when I want the tool, I can't find it because he got it and he just is somewhere. Oh, that just irks me. When I want my tool, I need it right then and there. I got things to do. Delay, right? So we talked about that before. But yesterday, he just, or yeah, it was yesterday, day before. I told him to go outside and clean the yard, right? And I happened to just come home and see him clean the yard. And I looked under the trampoline, and Toya, him, they were outside. They pulled up the branch cutters, and it was just, this is a metal device, and it was just like, it was destroyed. I'm like, what? I was just
He was
thinking, oh my
rusted.
God. Yeah, and I'm like, how long has this been out here? I'm livid because it wasn't about just that. It was just, I'm just thinking, what did he do for this to happen? What did he have to do? So all that's flashing through my head. And I'm just thinking, not only did he take it without asking me, but he didn't even try to hide it. He didn't even try. When I was this age, I would try to clean up my mess. Just a little bit, We're kids. That's what we do. That's what we do, right?
He
He didn't
forgot.
even try,
He
man.
forgot. He has ADHD. He forgot.
Right. But here's the crazy part about it. And so this is also in conflict. You learn some compassion as you think about it, right?
Yes.
So in that moment, you're not thinking he's got ADHD. He's got ADHD. You're not thinking that. You're thinking about the thing that you value. That's the first thing. Like, oh. Right.
That's why I say perception.
So I'm just thinking about all that stuff. Like, what did he have to do? But it wasn't even just that. It was the fact that it's been outside for over a month. And he's right by that trampoline all the time. And he never thought, you know what? Let me just bring that in the house, man. Let me just go ahead and real quick None of that. So I was upset about all of that. And I was like, all right, boom. I didn't talk to him that, for the rest of the day. Now this kind of aligns with our question, our first question that we're going to pose.
Yes. My God.
I need time for my emotions to calm down before I attempt to resolve my arguments.
Yes.
Now, I want to make something clear. This is, at this moment, we're talking about a parent-child relationship. Okay? That's a conflict, right? Parents have conflicts with their children. Children have conflicts with their parents, right? This is where we learn it all, right here.
Yeah.
And so I have to say to myself, all right, look, I am upset, right? I need you to see it visibly. This is what anger looks like. Okay. You feel a certain way about that. You get impressed by that, right? And then you watch how I handle that emotion, that frustration, whatever. So as a child, it's like, all right, he didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. But the next day I talked to him. And I broke it down. I was like, hey, man, I want you to understand something. Because, he tried to give me his wallet so that he could pay for the cutter, right? He tried, right? But I was like, look, man, I want you to understand something. It's not about the cutter, Solomon. It's not about that. It's the principles behind it. And I need you to be aware of that. So we had this heart-to-heart conversation. I could not do that if I was still heated.
Yeah.
Volcanic. I could not be intentional and clear enough to do that because I wanted this to be effective, right? Now this is just parent-child. Now it's not always going to be that, that successful or that nice. It's not always going to be that.
Why not?
I slip up. I slip up sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, overrun. The process gets overridden. It is like, man, I didn't follow the process. The emotion I allowed the emotion, so there is a self-control element in this, right? But I want to bring up that first question right there. Hold on.
But don't talk over the main reason. You keep saying it. But the problem is the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. That's the hooded bandit in all of this. Okay, it comes around. It stirs up problems and causes conflict, and then nobody really sees it because everybody takes it as normal. This is the way you're supposed to react in this case. Everybody think it's normal. So emotions don't get the blame they need to get. So then, because if we took the time to blame the emotion, then we start to deal with ourselves. We start to look and see, well, then how do we cultivate? Then what's the opposite of being emotional? The opposite of being emotional is being at peace. That's your space. That's your pause, is peace. Learning how to cultivate peace within your spirit, even in those moments. That's how you get the pause. You see, and then that's how you never. So that way, that pause is about not feeling any kind of way about it. Not feeling any kind of way. So this emotional reflex that we do in these situations, it's a reflex. That's why we react to it, and it's an animal instinct. It's an animal instinctual emotional response. And so this is why we end up attacking those that we love. And this is how we end up forgetting that we do actually want this relationship, that we love these people that we're in a relationship with. So we end up judging them instantly. There's instant judgment. Oh, they did this and it was against me. So then we got two things. There's perspective. Okay. And then there's perspective. I forgot the other word. I just said it a while ago. This is what happens. This is how I know I'm getting close to 50 years old. But from your perspective, so you have to see, like, his perspective is he's got ADHD. That's his perspective. Your perspective is somebody just took my tool and it's about the principle. See, that's perspective. You see, and but when it comes to um, how we need to look at these things, is you have to throw in some sort of understanding. Some sort of understanding. So how do you remain in that position to where, despite that, how do you keep your your love and your compassion? How do you put that first? Well, you got to overwrite those emotions,
Yeah.
even when they rise up. And eventually, even in a time when something's not happening like that, you have to be working on yourself. You got to be, my go-to thing is meditation, quiet myself. I always keep myself in a peaceful state. So when these things come about, well, I'm already at peace and I'm just kind of like, oh, la, la, la.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unbothered, but I can also, but it also, one of the major things too is because without that peace, part of cultivating that peace is
Mm-hmm.
releasing attachments, you know. So so these are the things that we have to do, but that's how you have to work on yourself. Release the attachment first. Release the attachment to the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Release, and try to understand the other person's perspective. Try to understand their perspective, and once you do that, you can accept. Okay, I can. Then that's where understanding comes in. Okay, I can see what happened there based on where you stand in all this. I can see that, but also, hope you can see where I stand on this too. So then let's meet in that middle ground. Let's compromise here. Okay, let's compromise. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what it boils down to, is doing just that, so that there can be true resolution. But you have to work on yourself. Nobody and everybody out there listening, you are not going to do better at this without working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm saying that because I see on Facebook all the time and on all social media platforms, everybody's always blaming somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's blaming somebody else. Every meme that comes through is about how somebody else is doing you. Oh, when
Mm-hmm.
they try to do such and such to you, and you just, when they doing such and such, and no, it's you. It's you. That's what all this comes about for, because it's always about you and your growth.
No
Okay,
accountability. I love that.
that's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Is that
That's right.
Shelly?
Yeah, that's Shelly.
Yeah, we're gonna invite her on one day.
Yes, absolutely. And she asked a question. She said, "What if you're
Oh
the
yeah.
type to bottle stuff
Yeah,
up too much?"
what do you do with that?
Well, yeah. Well, this is where you have to, be careful, because there's a balance between being passive and being aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And the center is about being assertive. That's the
Yep.
balance, knowing when to assert yourself. But if you don't have any standards by which you measure yourself, then you're going to allow yourself to either get ran over, or you're going to be overreactive. So it still comes back to you knowing you and what's good for you. You see, how do you function in all this? It's too many things that are like interconnecting, and not necessarily. It's only a conflict by the way we react to that interconnection, right? So are we bouncing off each other so we're out of phase, or are we going to be interconnecting while we're in phase? We could be in phase and it can be all harmonious.
She said I
Okay,
was
so
for years.
huh?
She said she was
Yeah,
passive for years.
and I know that about Shelly. I know that about Shelly. She has been. She's a sweetheart. She truly is a sweetheart. But try not to be um, passive. But assertive doesn't build it. When it becomes anger, Shelly, it's aggression. Okay. As long as you're still being assertive, then it's still passion. But when it gets to anger, now you're being aggressive. Anger is, so that's why I say that's the emotional scale that you're dealing with. So passivity is still fear. You see, passivity is born out of fear. when aggression is born out of anger. Okay, now peace, right there in the center of all that, is where you are able to be assertive. You can look at, see what really needs to be done, and then you can start to take the right actions because you keep all things in consideration. This is the power that you have. Okay, and then but understand this, and you can't really actualize this until you realize it, right? You have the power to take everything like a loving mother, how a loving mother would gather all of her loved ones, all her babies, and protect them. So you have to think about each component. I love the relationship. I love the person in a relationship. I love our experience. So let me pull all those and so let my actions, let me protect them. Let me protect them by implementing the right action at this point. Everything I do have to consider all these components when it comes to this relationship. I love the relationship. I don't want to ruin it. What's the right action? I love this person. I don't want to hurt them. What's the right action? You know, I love what we can, our experience that we can have tomorrow. How do I protect that right now with the way that I'm acting right now? So you have to act, because as soon as you say, man, forget about that, it's just about me, I'm hurting, and then you done negated all of that. You done gave all that up because you're hurting, negated everything. That's not the way you resolve anything. So you have to love people enough. And this is the highest act of love. You love people enough to change who you are. That's the highest act of love. And that's exactly what I've done. I had to look, I was the aggressor, even though I aggressed after somebody did something to me, but I always went bigger. I let people know, like, if you hit me, I'm going to intentionally hit you back 3 times harder than what you hit me. I'm going to do it bigger. So don't do it to me, because I'm going to do it bigger to you.
I'm going to up the ante.
I'm going to up it, and I'm going to make you sorry. Okay? I'm going to make you sorry. But other than that, I would never offend anybody. But I would retaliate and be like a wasp nest. If you hit a wasp nest now and wasps come on you, I'll be on you like that. Don't you hit this wasp nest? I'm gonna sting you, and not. But at the same time, but when I didn't take the time to implement any type of understanding or anything like that, it cost me that relationship. It cost me a further experience with that person, because that was a temporary moment that I judged them in, and then I reacted to. I gave a permanent effect to a temporary situation. You see, and that's not what I wanted, because when I look back, they don't want to talk to me no more. They don't want nothing to do with me, because they say, "Oh, you out of control." They were right. So I'm like, I gotta change that. So then I had to learn how to take those gut punches, like I always tell you. When they do something or say something I don't like, just absorb it. And I had to learn how to do that first before I learned how to now, try to understand. And so it's successive stages. Okay. So just remember that a state and a stage is 2 different things. States are for free. Stages got to be earned. So what stage are you in? What stage of consciousness are you in? What stage of this being this loving person that can build and maintain beautiful relationships? What stage are you at? All those have to be earned. And that's all depending on the state that you have earned, the state of mind that you've earned. You see? So all this is important. And yeah, what did she say? Oh, this is Love Sean. She said, I've been angry for so long and I can see myself as being aggressive. I'm working on dealing with life challenges and accept the things as they are. Well, to that too, Love Sean, what I would say, it's not about accepting things as they are. The only aspect of that you want to accept as it is just the fact that it happens. But remember, it happens, and it still is calling for a response from you. Not a reaction, but a response. Is remember that what we all are, and this is And I'm not trying to throw beliefs on anybody or nothing like that, but we are all that divine creator interacting with itself. It's expressing through us as us and is interacting with itself. So it's trying to teach itself through its relationships, through our relationship. It's teaching itself. Okay. So it is calling for a response from you. But remember, there is a boundary within which that response needs to be, and it needs to have love, compassion, light, peace, happiness, enjoyment, harmony, order, all that stuff in the response. Anything that's not anything that's not in that any kind of quality, any one of those qualities that your response don't bring is going to be outside of that divine thing. So we're here to cultivate our divinity, and we learn that best through our relationships. We learn it best. So because I love you, I'm going to work on me. Because I love you, I'm going to make sure that we have the best time. And despite what happens, we'll get through it together. We'll get through it together. And I got a vow not to ever forsake what we have. And that's no matter what. That's even if you go crazy, I have to just sit back and wait till you're done. Okay. You don't get no response out of me. When you're done, then I'm going to teach you how not to do that again. I'm going to bring understanding, and I'm going to walk with you as we both learn how you don't do that again. That's what it comes down to. So thank you though for sharing that though, John. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
It was. King Newborn, do you have anything you want to add?
What's going on, brother?
Peace, peace, peace. This King Newborn. You can follow me on all social media platforms as Newborn Everything. And normally, I always say, I ain't gonna say normally. Yeah, normally I always say I am of service. First and foremost, peace and blessings to each and every one of y'all that's on here. Sorry for the late intro. I received the link kind of late, but to add to what Saba is stressing and Skywalker is stressing, is one of the things that I stand on is the word peace.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't establish anything, excuse me, if you don't have understanding out of whatever the situation is. And sometimes that would be the quickest reaction to have, is to seek understanding. So to become knowledgeable or acknowledge what's going on right here. Why your chemical composition and physical composition is changing. What did I do to offend you? Or what is it that I'm missing that I should be understanding? Or better yet, what is it that is a delayed communication from the both of us? In order to get to that peace, you got to establish that understanding. And like Saba said, and also God level, you got to bring yourself to a pause, like a second, just to step away, not physically, well, sometimes physically, but step away to the extent to where you can oversee the whole situation that maybe led up to this particular moment. It could have been something that you was insensitive about and you didn't take it into consideration, like Saba said, from their perspective. You're not seeing it through their lenses, what caused them a trigger or a reaction for them to act out. And then you react. And between the two of those, still no, there's an understanding, but it ain't the understanding that you're looking for. Sometimes that conflict becomes bigger than the both of y'all. And you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, hold on. How did I get here? Because I was just telling them how much I love them, how much I care about them, how much I adore them, and so forth and so forth. My thing, I always tell myself, in order for me to get to peace, I have to ask myself, am I communicating correctly? Just because of the way in my world I communicate might not be precise, on point, the way you communicate or how you relay your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, and just overall who you are. We have to realize I have a world, you have a world. I have a background, you have a background. I have a particular way I came up, you have a particular way you came up. But you have to approach this almost at the same standing as you do when you sign on to a new job. This is basically a contract situation. We're exchanging of powers or how to treat me. So when you sit down at the table, fill out that application, and they say, this is what is required. And by these requirements, if they're met, this is what we offer. Within communication, there's a requirement and an offer, but then there also is a counter offer. And I don't think we taking the time out to really look at that to arrive at a certain point, which is our understanding. This is our agreement in order to move forward or move past what it is that we're going through. So when we react, it's not the correct respawn. Like Saba said, in order to get to that respawn, I myself, I continue to say peace a whole lot in the conversation, even when I'm ignorant to the understanding, which I will revert back to, well, can you bring me up to speed? Can you help me understand where it is that I lost communication? Can you help me acknowledge where it is I may have triggered you? It don't matter what level it is. I appreciate what John spoke on dealing with the tool situation, because it does bring about things that we get attached to sometimes, because we look at those as possessions that we protect. So by me putting something back in the same place where it's supposed to be the last time I put it, when I go back to get it when I need it and it's not there, triggered, hold up. Because at that point I feel like things are out of order. Now the man I've become now, I'm just gonna ask some questions to get to an understanding what happened to my tool. Oh, okay, so and so. Okay, cool. All right, I got it. But I'm still saying that, just like John, I still stand for self-correcting of myself, because sometimes the answer I might receive to help me come to an understanding, I might block understanding for a second just to react like, yo, don't touch unless you ask, typically, again, attachment. But if certain things that are of me that come by the way of being blessed to me, to be of service to those that are around me in my universe, I have to know that these things are being worked through me, so that way they're available to those that I love, which is also knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Understanding is the best part of any situation, no matter what's going on. If you can't reach an understanding, y'all probably shouldn't be communicating, because at some point somebody is exempting minor behavior, not major behavior, minor behavior. And you have, like Saba said, you have no control of another person's maturity. They mature on their own will and accord, not because you want to raise them up to your level, so to speak. You have to allow them to mature when they're ready to mature. And then maybe they may, resurface back to set situation so y'all can discuss that matter. Reactions is not the way to go on anything that you deal in life. Conflict resolution is a beautiful song if sung correctly. That's pretty much it. I just say peace to everything, and that's my trigger. That's my focal point. That's what it'll shut me up. It'll also make me stand still, be humble, and listen with an attentive ear to make sure I'm catching all the details, so I can understand correctly from their perspective. And sometimes you also have to, I don't know if anybody else experienced it. Sometimes you have to respect the fact, because you're maturing to develop peace, that might not be what the other person want when y'all trying to communicate to understanding. They want reaction. As you doing your personal journey to get to peace, get to understanding, to develop peace, you tend to lose people because they can't control how you react.
They're not ready yet.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not. Yeah. But that's still a level of maturity. You're still
Facts.
talking about not just biological maturity, but we're talking about mental and spiritual maturity, and how we're dealing with people. So, and that other word I was talking about, you said you were talking about perspective, and then there's perception.
Facts.
Perspective is understanding from where the other person stands on the issue, and perception is your judgment of it. How you perceive it, and that itself, remember that perception thing is going to come through your filters, which is going to be garnered by your triggers. What emotional conditions do you already have in place? That's the main thing that keeps you from understanding the other person's point of view, or just
And I
bringing
want
an
to.
understanding to the situation.
I
Hmm.
I like what you just used there, Saba, because sometimes that can be synonymous with assumption, assuming to a high level that this is what you meant, and it wasn't. Now you're at the point where was you even listening? Did you take time out, like you said, to hear that person's perspective? And if you didn't,
Hmm.
it's just all hell breaks loose.
Exactly. Exactly. And so the main point, I'm sorry, John, I'm gonna let you go ahead and move us forward, beloved. Go ahead.
Dang, I was actually
I
gonna
told you
piggyback
this
off
was your
what
show
no, it's not my show.
last
This is not
week.
my show. I was gonna piggyback off of that because yeah, assumptions. That part, one of the largest contributors to our conflicts is the assumptions that we have about relationships in general, right? So each individual has their own directives, right? As it relates and perceptions of the relationship. And we make some very grand assumptions about the individuals that we're interacting with. We make grand assumptions like, okay, they think like me in some capacity, but we also assume that they don't, right? So, as it relates to relationships, it's like I'm taking a risk to, for example, I'm taking a risk to give you money. I'm taking a risk to be generous to you, to be kind to you, to take care of you, right? I'm taking a risk because there are narcissists out there, right?
Very, very much so.
Right.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and so there is, without you really knowing, there is an assumed competition, right? And here you were really trying to collaborate. This
Yeah.
person's trying to compete.
Mm.
But you're conditioned to believe that most human beings are collaborative in nature, right? And so if that is your worldview, so now the worldview comes into the table. If your worldview is that because of your upbringing, your worldview is that most human beings are collaborative in nature, you may set yourself up in relationships that are even parasitic, and you just not know because your worldview hasn't given that to you, right? So here it is. There's a conflict, and it's a conflict that was not set up for you to succeed because of the nature of this individual right here. The nature of this individual is to be parasitic, right? So it's like there's a lot of assumptions that we take when we're relating, even from the perspective of the person that's being predatory and parasitic and selfish and narcissistic. Even from their perspective, they have some grand assumptions about relationships. Beliefs like you can't trust nobody. Why? Because I don't trust myself, and therefore you can't trust nobody because that's what I know. I know you can't trust yourself, therefore you can't, like now we insert beliefs, right? And all of that influences how we even just initiate the relationships. And then,
That's a big
you know,
deal.
right? And then, we develop our little rhythm or whatever, we kind of figure each other out. We got these personas, we put our best foot forward, and then the real set, or yeah, we'll just say the real self starts to come out, right? And so conflict. You got to make these decisions. Do I stay in this relationship or do I terminate? Again, what are
Totally.
our general assumptions about relationships? You may come from a background where, hey, in my relationships, we make it work. That is the general rule. In all of my relationships, we make it work. There is no separation. If you came up from a different background, it might have been the inverse. Well, hey, they only get a few tries, and then you got to cut them off. Right. So, what are our general assumptions? That's really going to influence our goals in our relationships. And some of us, we don't have those same goals, and we don't talk about those processes. They're just kind of assumed, they're just kind of I guess perpetuated through TV, right?
This
And
is
so there's a
true.
lot of assumptions are there. Like if the parents aren't talking to the kids about how to socialize, well, you got to learn somehow. So you're going to imitate what you see. And if there's no context, no explanation, no dialogue to explain, hey, this is why we do this, this is why you shouldn't do this. If there's none of that, you just gonna assume that, hey, this is how all relationships work.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and that opens up a whole world of mysteries, right? Should we address this question here though?
Yes.
All right, so this one was our most engaged post. So thank y'all. Wow,
Oh,
wow, look
really?
at y'all, look at us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at that.
this had 27 votes. Okay.
What?
By the way, y'all join our Facebook group. Join our Facebook group. Plug in on this poll. So here are the results. 13 said true. Ideally I need to be calm. One said false, and I thought the false statement was very interesting. But false, I can't wait to resolve, needs to happen urgently. 12 says depends on the situation, and one person said it depends on the situation and the individual. Now, let me see if I can find that post. For the false, oh man. How can I go there? It's on, it's on my page. It's on my page. All right. So Latasha had replied with false. And essentially, I'm just gonna paraphrase. Well, hold on. Yeah, I'm just gonna paraphrase. She was essentially saying, I think you need to handle the conflict right there, even when the tensions are high, because you don't know if you're gonna be here tomorrow. I thought that was interesting as a consideration, right? Because we do make that assumption that, you know what, I could walk away from this and I'll just come
deal with
back
it tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah. That is
Well,
a worthy consideration.
it is. However, a lot of times it's not realistic sometimes, because sometimes it's like the person who deemed it false. There are some people who want to go ahead and deal with it at that time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they don't, even though you try to let it go for the moment, but they won't, which causes more conflict. Now, that can escalate things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I personally think that some people, because of the stage that they're at, they haven't earned that higher stage to where they can just walk away, or they haven't earned a higher stage where they can sit there and resolve it right there. I think people at a higher stage probably can stop and deal with the conflict right in the moment when it's happening. There are some who's at the point to where they need to take the time to go and grab that space, that pause, that we were talking about, and then there are some who are who not thinking in that kind of way, and they want to go ahead and just express their emotion at that point. They don't want to walk away. They want to go ahead and just get out what they want to say. You see? So it all depends on what stage and state of mind that you're in. That's going to determine that. Now, if you need the time for the emotions to calm down, then that's always a good idea. If that's what you need, that's the best idea to do that. Okay, but again, not everybody's there, and as you can tell in your responses there, not everybody's at that point. Some would say that they need to, but then in reality, remember that most people are going to be answering this with their representative and not their true self. You have to see them in the moment, and then they're gonna you'll see that they're gonna act opposite of what they answered. So because emotions are very powerful when they rise up. I know for me, I personally like to go ahead and deal with it at that time, but also I'm at the point to where I don't have to if the other person don't want to. If that person needs to take his space, then I can take the space too. You see, that's where I'm at. But if they're able to go ahead and resolve it, then I rather go ahead and resolve it then and not take it to the next moment. If we can go ahead and resolve it in the moment. But if they need that space, I give them that understanding and say, okay, well, I'll be whatever. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Can we
To
talk
talk about
about
it.
can we talk about the process of discovering what you need for conflict resolution?
Well, yeah, because that process, well, it's about paying attention to how you're reacting, in the onset of the conflict. How are you reacting? And then think about what is your reaction getting you? Is it, what kind of result is it getting you? But to know if that's a good or bad result, you have to also know what result do you want? What's the goal? you know and now you got to give thought to the relationship itself, the person you're in conflict with, and so forth. If it's not about, at the end of the day, not about love and compassion for the other person and the relationship itself, then yeah, you're gonna need some work. Okay, you're gonna need some work, because that means you're too selfish to even be in a relationship. You're too selfish if it's just gonna always be about you. And I've said this before, but anytime that you make it about you in a relationship, it's no longer a relationship. It's a dictatorship.
Hmm.
Okay. It's a dictatorship. You're trying to get somebody to appease you instead of work along. So a relationship is a cooperative process. It's a cooperative process.
Teamwork.
This ain't just teamwork. If not, it's going to look like a Ike and Tina kind of thing. Okay. That's what we don't want it to look like. So
I want to unpack one of the variables, or one of the influences to your example right there, right? So someone who's making it about them, and I'm imagining a generation, a class of us, being in families where they just robbed a lot, because this is what the topic is about, right? Where children are being robbed of their dignity, their pride, their self-esteem. And so growing up, so much was taken from you, from your family, psychologically, right? Not being supported, those have effects. And then when you become older and you're autonomous, you're self-reliant, self-sufficient, let's just say you beat those odds, right?
mhm.
Now you're entering relationships, you're unhealthy, you're sick, and
Mhm.
it doesn't stop you from engaging in relationships, initiating relationships. Here you are, you're being irresponsible, unconsciously irresponsible, because you're about to attempt, in a sense, to ruin another human being, because your intentions in the relationship.
Mhm.
Your intentions are very self-centered. That for yourself, right? But
Mhm.
not being honest with the other person about those intentions, not being vocal, that part, right? And of course,
Mhm.
it's a defense mechanism. I can't let them see me as they can't see me like this, right? So
Yeah.
we're also dealing with that, right? We understand. I mean, we can moralize it, but we also understand that people are
But well, hold on. Go
conditioned
back to
to
that last thing
behave.
you just said. That last thing you just said, when you're saying that I can't let them see me like this.
Mm-hmm.
They can't see they can't see me being weak. I can't be weak, or it can't be bad. But remember, that means they are controlling you, because now you're trying to conform to how you think they should see you. So
Mm-hmm.
you putting the reins in their hands, instead of saying I need them to. This is how they're going to see me. These are the principles by which I live. You know, if you call yourself a peaceful person, a person of peace, and a fair person, and so forth, this is what you give to people, regardless of how you think they might see you and things like that. Because so to think in that kind of way, of course, that is an epithet of the ego, and this, you automatically turn power over to someone else, you know, by trying to conform to how you think they should see you, you know. So that's the first thing, is to reclaim your power, reclaim. You decide how you're going to be, and that's what you present without fail to everybody you meet, without fail. And that does take some cultivation. That takes some cultivation. You have to know you, and you have to decide where you go with your personification. How are you going to present to people? You make that decision, and be real about it. You can decide to be however you want. You are a being of endless possibilities, and you got the power to be who and what you want to be at any time. And you decide that, and don't let others decide that for you. You
Facts.
know, so that's
Be
the
okay
main
with
thing.
being vulnerable.
Period.
Be okay with being vulnerable. It's okay to show a side of you they ain't never seen before. Remember, this is two people trying to work together to learn each other. And like Saba said, and Skywalker, what's your true intentions? We back to communication again. Are we
Hmm.
really communicating to the level I'm sharing all with you? But all can only come out in situations, which cause us, from a chemical standpoint, to react. But when we react, we have to hold ourselves accountable, be responsible, and practice emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
So that way I can respond accurately. I do want to add that this is a thing I think both men and women do. You know, we say silence is golden, but
Ooh.
silence can kill a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm.
If a person
Yeah.
is pouring out to you and you call yourself, well, I'm just gonna be quiet and let you talk. That could be can be considered as being condescending. Like, are you being quiet so you can assess, so you can really hear what's being
To get
said to you or
understanding.
relate to get understanding? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just saying that because you don't even really care about what they're saying?
And
Because it
you're
has
not
nothing to do with,
listening.
yeah,
Hmm.
it has nothing to do with your pain, your ego, because you're trying to prove your point. We still got to
Hmm.
remember this is not an independent situation. We're
Hmm.
dependent on each other for conflict resolutions of what we seek in an independent world. Just in case anybody caught that. That's why we in this
Yeah.
relationship. So that
Hmm.
means we got to let me put my weapons down, you put your weapons down, and let me become naked before you. So you can truly see the transparency in me and how much, like Saba said, the highest expression of a human being is love. Let me show you that I want to be loved, but I also want to love you. How can you love someone, which is another level of communication? How can you love someone if you can't even be of service to express love to them or even be
Hmm.
vulnerable for them to see the weak side of you to receive love?
Hmm.
Just some thoughts. Just some
Well, you
thoughts.
know what they say. If you want to be loved, then you need to become a loving person. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
make friends, then you need to become friendly. You know, you can't expect people, and that's the worst thing when somebody comes up in this thing. They say, "Well, I just want to be loved." Those people frighten me, because love is not, that's something, again, that you cultivate through your own actions. It's something you give out, and then in reciprocity, in a reciprocal act, it comes back to you. Respect, same thing. You come to give it, not to get it. You know. So this is so in our, and that's one of the ways that we show love for one another, is by improving our own selves, you know, just for better interaction and a better experience with other people. This is how we love each other, you know. So you got to get down with that. And a lot of people want to go first. Somebody's got to go first. Say.
That's big facts. Big facts.
Mm-hmm.
So let's address this question right here. What are some barriers to conflict resolution?
Did you get? Was that a poll too?
Ooh,
No, that wasn't a poll. This one wasn't a
Oh,
poll.
okay. Okay. Well, really, we've been naming the barriers. People not willing to give up their own emotional condition, not
Mhm.
not willing to give up those things that they're attached to. You know, lack of prioritization. They're prioritizing
Mhm.
other things over the relationship. You know, these are some barriers. Not really realizing their participation and function in the conflict itself, and not taking accountability for it. You
Mhm.
see, all these are barriers to it. And they're, again, not willing. So this emotional conditioning keeps them not willing to calm down into, because they're seeking out this drama. You know, you read the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle lays out so greatly the he talks about the pain body, you know, in a person. There's a part of each of us that seeks out drama, because somehow through that pain, through that conflict, the ego identifies itself. It identifies itself. And so when you mention those narcissistic folks, they love being victim, but they always are the villain that causes, and they somehow make other people look like the villain, and they become the victim.
facts,
Okay. But
facts.
they seek this stuff out, and it I would like to diagnose that, or to give it a literal psychological illness, because they have no idea that this is what they're doing.
All right.
And I
So
have
I was
I have
going to
some very,
mention that
yeah,
mental
I have some,
disorders. That's a barrier.
yes.
Okay.
Mental
Personality
disorders is a big bear.
disorders.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I have some people in my life that are sweethearts, but they are narcissistic. Oh my goodness. I hear them all the time in their stories, what they're telling me. I'm like, this sure happens to you a lot. You sure still, you sure have these same kind of interactions with people, and it's always somebody being against you. And how are you attracting this, in your life like this? What's really going on? Then I look a little deeper, then, oh no, it's you. It ain't them. But they sweethearts, when you, as long, and that means it's just a matter of time before you become their villain or a slash victim. It's just a matter of time. So you have to be very, very, you have to tread lightly with people like them, because as soon as you do something that they don't agree with, they're going to make you their villain. And then they're going to tell it to people to make it seem like you were the one that was in the wrong, or what have you. So that's the thing. But yes, so mental illness,
Um,
substance
some
abuse, and
personality
addiction.
types. Yeah, some
Hmm.
personality traits. It could be stubbornness. Um, Maybe even some vices, like
Hmm.
being sloth, being greedy.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see. We are okay. Dishonesty. Dishonesty can be a barrier to conflict resolution. Being
Really.
deceptive.
So we've really got to talk about that, because this dishonesty and honesty is not as cut and dry as it seems.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
It's not as cut and dry as it seems. Be honest with you. I've come to learn that most people cannot deal with honesty.
Mm,
That once honesty is out there, once there's transparency out there, then they automatically attack it instead of seeing it as an opportunity to establish understanding. They automatically get offended by it, and they start to attack it. And so that automatically makes people shut down, and not want to be honest, because they don't want that type of response. You see, so it's
They
like,
don't
it's
want that
almost like
type of
choosing your battle.
responsibility neither.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
You
you have to be
see?
responsible at that point. If a person is not lying to you and being honest to you, honest with you up front, there's no other side of the picture. It's only your
Hmm.
perception now of, do you understand that they're giving you their whole truth and looking for you to understand, like, okay, I'm either asking for help or I'm displaying to you, this is all of me. This is all I have to offer to you to be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, Saba, that will sometimes make a person back down because they used to trying to build the drama to figure it out so you can fit the box of the last relationship, the
Mm-hmm.
last situation, because that was their last understanding of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into
Right.
these new relationships, we have to go into them with an open mind frame. This is a whole new individual.
But also
Now,
clean
if
your
I,
plate. You
go
don't
ahead.
go in there with
Oh
with a
yeah,
painted
yeah,
on
yeah,
canvas.
yeah,
You
yeah,
got to
yeah.
go
Facts.
into a relationship with a new canvas, but maybe some new paints. Okay. So from your previous
Facts.
experience, you say, okay, in that last experience, I used brown in that one, and I don't want to, so I'm gonna change that out for maybe a navy blue, so I can paint the
There
right
you go.
picture in this one. You see what I'm saying?
Level up.
But you go in with a
Level up.
clean canvas. Yeah, you can't go in like that. But also, if there's a dishonesty, we have to understand that that's not the same as like lying. Okay, so dishonesty is just saying that I'm just not revealing all, you know, and it could be out of fear of judgment and stuff like that.
Facts.
But lying is lying. When somebody lied to you, that is deceptive. So deception is a whole nother thing. And then betrayal, you know, that's a whole nother thing. These are, you know, conflict resolution barriers as well. When you've been lied to and somebody is actually trying to make you think something different than what really is. So that's straight out lying. That's not just dishonesty, you know. Um, so yeah, so those are some things. But again, you have to be an honorable person if you want people to be honest with you. Be honorable. You understand? That means you accept what is. You try to understand what is and not try to dictate what it should be. You see, I had a girl, you know, my oldest daughter for a long time, me and her mom didn't really, you know, see eye to eye on a lot of things. And at some point I had not mentioned uh them at all because it was such a heartfelt pain for me. And I remember I had gotten in this relationship, and and then eventually my oldest daughter called me and she wants to build a relationship with me. Now I didn't mention this relationship with my I didn't even mention my oldest daughter to this girl that I was in a relationship with. But when my daughter called me and said she wants to build a relationship with me, I'm like, oh, cool. I've been waiting on this for years. So then I go to this girl and I say, hey, I gotta tell you about something. So then I told her about my oldest daughter and said I want to and she wants to build a relationship with me, so I'm gonna do that. And I gave her the whole backstory and all that stuff. So she decides that she took it as if I was being dishonest with her, as if I was being I had lied to her about. So I said, no, I didn't lie to you. I didn't tell you about it, but it wasn't part of my story. It just came up, and I'm telling you, when something comes up, I'm coming right out and telling you. So this is the honest part of it. I'm letting you
Mm.
know. You know, this is not something you caught me in. This is something you wouldn't even known about if I don't tell you. So I went and brought it to her, and she actually felt, you know, all these betrayal and stuff. So this is what we're talking about: perspective and perception. Because of her perception, the relationship ended right there on the spot. Just and all I was seeking was her support, you know, letting her know that this is what I was going to be doing. And I was seeking her support, but we end up ending the relationship because of her uh, perception of it. You see? So this is what I'm saying. Um, so she wasn't honorable. She couldn't handle honesty. You know, I really thought that that was a safe place for me to express that kind of thing. I thought I had her ultimate understanding, you know, in her listening ear, but I didn't. I didn't.
Mm.
You see? So that's just how it is sometimes. That's how it is sometimes. Now, partial truths, Shelly, we're talking about, well, I guess you could say that partial truth is just like saying only what needs to be said and nothing more. saying only what needs to be said and nothing more, as long as the other part that you leave out is not being deceptive. It's not for the fact of being deceptive. It's just like, okay, because sometimes some people can't handle all of it. Some people can't handle all of
Facts.
it. And that's just how it is. I mean, we have to get real with each other. Everybody out here don't want to be lied to. Everybody wants honesty from everybody. But really, are you somebody who can handle that? And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. Are you somebody who can handle that? What's your response to honesty? Because this some things can be ugly. But if somebody wants to lay it all out there, how are you going to respond? You're going to respond or you're going to react?
Yeah,
So make
based
sure
off of that,
that's not,
that person
yeah,
can shut down and not want to share anything else with you because you can't even take this baby food I'm giving you about me. You blowing up, going crazy. Like, whoa, I didn't expect that
absolutely,
to go like that.
absolutely.
Okay, let me tuck the rest of this away.
And that causes more conflict.
Facts.
So you have to understand, what are these agents of conflict themselves? Are we implementing more agents of conflict in the effort to resolve conflict?
Mm,
That's bad. That's bass backwards.
that part. That part.
Yeah. So yeah. So just understand. So that's why it just goes back to you working on yourself. You moving all of your stuff out of the way. And again, when we talk about that Venn diagram, these are two circles overlapping, and where they overlap is the relationship. You have to understand, like, what parts of myself am I not bringing into this relationship because I don't want to damage this relationship, and I still got issues. So I'm gonna leave my issues outside of this relationship. I'm not going to bring that into this relationship. But I can't just let these issues sit. I got to work on myself to resolve these issues so I can be better for this relationship. You got to
You know,
protect it like it's a baby.
I find that very interesting that you just said that because first thing popped in my mind just now is that we always looking for the new person to fix us when we bring baggage to the new situation. That's not fair. You're not even
It's
giving
not,
yourself or
no.
that person the opportunity to grow together when I gotta fix damage from the last person that you was with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Saba, clean your plate.
Mm-hmm. I know I've had some, a couple of times I've had sessions with couples. It started out with the couples to where they were like, um, they came to me because they were on the verge of breaking up or they were having some kind of issues. And one of them decided to come and get counseling for it. And so I always, both times, it was the primary one who decided to get the counseling who came in to see me by themselves. Then I said, you have to bring your partner in. Bring your partner in so I can see both sides. Let me get a complete picture. And then I would ask them a series of questions, as far as, do you care about this relationship, and blah blah blah. So I can get a good picture. And then by the time we're done with that session, then I'll schedule another session with the original person who scheduled the session, and I would let them know at that time. And so this happened twice. So you don't have a relationship here. Let's start figuring out how you're going to get out of this. How you going to, what steps
Mm.
you need to take to separate yourself from the situation. Sometimes that's the answer. And both times, and they both are still my clients today because it was the best move. They're living a happy life at this point. They're living a happy life. It's not like that for everybody, but for sometimes this is what has to happen. You know, like, let's just figure out how you're going to move on from this because you got work to do. This person is not willing to sit with you while you work on yourself. That's the whole problem they're having, is you working on yourself. They have no patience. They didn't explain that there is no understanding and so forth. Just get out of there because you're not going to get anything out of this, especially if that person is not seeking help. if that person's not seeking guidance, but that person has already explained that, hey, this is what I want out of this, and it's all selfish. No, you got to leave it alone. Leave it alone. So sometimes that's the answer, but you got to know when. Be discerning, people. Be discerning.
Mm.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's bring it on around. Let's bring it on around. We've been exploring for quite some time. I want to make sure that we leave the audience with some tips. Let's talk about solutions. Right? We've definitely hacked at that problem, and I think that there's still more to be explored. But this question right here: what are some strategies, methods to resolve conflict? Now, managing conflict doesn't necessarily mean preventing conflict, right? So different opinions and perspectives can provide opportunities to better understand how other people feel, how to relate to them on a deeper level. That's why we have relationships. We don't want just copies of ourselves, right? So I would, in no specific order, but I would say one of the first few things that we should be doing is dealing with the emotions first, right? We're talking about reducing the emotional arousal, reducing the stress. If we can agree that emotions color our judgment, we can agree that once the body returns to homeostasis, our rational problem solving skills can resume. They would be more accurate, more useful, right? They're going to be more influenced by the emotion. So I would say, start off with that first, or some of your first few steps needs to be that, right? Get yourself clear so that you can request some clarity. So that means just, walk away for a few hours, maybe even a day, but also in that, communicate your intentions. All right. This is something I had to learn. I used to, oh my gosh, I used to be so good at ghosting. And I kind of still am, but it's just not, good practice, right? It's irresponsible. Communicate your intentions. Hey, I'm feeling really distressed right now, or I'm feeling this way right now. I can't talk to you. Please just give me 5 hours. Give me a day. Let me come down so I can really talk to you. I promise I'm not going to let this go. That's very difficult for a lot of people. I understand that. But just communicating that intention so that the other person, because maybe that person needs that. Like they need to feel like, all right, we're going to resolve this. Some people need that. So I want to put that out there. You got to take care of you, but communicate that that's what your intention is. I'm going to take care of myself so I can better deal with this. Let's go in a circle. Let's go in a circle. Somebody else throw popcorn.
All right.
Throw out a tip, a strategy.
All right. So first thing I want to say that we do not manage conflict. We manage healthy relationships. Okay. We don't manage conflict. We transcend conflict in order to manage healthy relationships.
Okay.
All right. It's because when we say managing something, that means it stays around and you just keep, you manage it. So it has to be around for you to manage it. You don't want to do that. You want to transcend it. You want to eradicate conflict. Right.
Okay. I would like to challenge that. What if a conflict isn't just going to be solved? Because I'm imagining time, right?
Sure.
Conflict
Go ahead.
could endure due to the nature and the complexity of the conflict. Couldn't it be sustained or managed over a period of time? Because it has
it doesn't change.
steps.
It doesn't change the goal. Isn't still the goal to get rid of the conflict?
Correct.
It doesn't matter
the
how.
goal, but does it go away as soon as you make an action, or is it just
So when you're making the action, though, beloved, no matter what you're doing, you're investing in a healthy relationship. You're not investing in a conflict. You see? So no matter what it is that you do, all your actions should be investing in a healthy relationship, not the conflict. Okay? So all your actions should be to eradicate, because that's why we call it a conflict. It's conflicting. It's opposing the healthy relationship. The healthy relationship is the goal. So that's what you want to manage. That's what you want to manage. And so you manage that by getting rid of the conflict or minimizing any type of conflict within that relationship. So the goal is to manage the healthy relationship. And then what you do is you eradicate conflict as they come up by whatever means that you can. So the question is this, do you think can you have a relationship where you have no arguments and nothing but peace and an agreement and harmony? Is there such a relationship?
No, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be
Well, I
problems.
have to beg to differ. I'm in one right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in one right now. We don't argue. My house is peaceful
Mm-hmm.
every day, every single day. We don't conflict. There is no arguments.
Mm-hmm.
If there's, and we don't even have, I can't say we have disagreements. And that's because neither one of us are so attached to anything to where we conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
because we're not attached to anything that could bring conflict. She expresses how she expresses, I express how I express, and we harmonize in that. We
Mm-hmm.
harmonize. I honor her for how she expresses. She's very, very good at maintaining balance in our space and everything. And all I know is every time I turn around, she's whatever I need is already right there. But even if she didn't do that, that'll be okay too. And then there are times when she turn around, whatever she needs is right there too. That's just how we pull up for one another. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
we focus on, you know? And when we talk, we don't argue. None of that. I have a peaceful household, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And was it always like this? But I could tell you that the last time that we had conflict was more than 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The last time, and it was really, I wouldn't say the first time, but it was the biggest. But when that biggest conflict happened, it didn't have there no more after that because of the decisions that we made following the
Mm-hmm.
vows that we took upon each other following. So it can. I'm not saying it started like that, but it is like that now. So yes, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. You have to think about how do you want to decorate your relationship? You have to think of it just like your house. You want things that's gratifying to your consciousness in your house, that emotion. You want the right colors, you want the right decor, and so forth. You can do your relationship the same way. You want to decorate it with passion and compassion. You want to decorate it with peace, happiness, and enjoyment of experiences with each other. Why can't you just choose all the time to have enjoyable experiences with one another? And so
So
when you
this
make
is.
that decision, then it can tell you where you need to change within yourself, because there's something in you that could be conflicting with that joy.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's the only way you'll know. You have to make a point to measure by something to measure yourself. I measure myself by the level of enjoyment I have in my relationship. What is it going to take? Because that's priority, especially because she lived with me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but either way it goes, when they say you pick your battles, right? And all I know is I'm choosing paradise in my home. I'm choosing paradise.
Mm-hmm. Dang, I want to address that. But
Okay. Okay.
because I'm trying to tap into this audience right here. It's like, all
Got
right,
you.
you have arrived, but I'm like, dang, we jumped. But yeah, we got to keep it
Okay.
pushing. We got to keep
I'm
it pushing.
sorry.
All
Okay.
right.
Yes, sir.
Active listening.
Mm. Explain what that is. I mean, I know what it is, but can you explain what that is?
All right,
What was the
so
question?
act.
He just said,
So right now we're just offering some strategies and tips, methods to resolve conflict. Right. So I'm just throwing out active listening. Develop your active listening skills. Right. So
Huge.
we're talking about suppressing the urge to think about what you're going to say next, or you're trying to multitask. So what is that
mhm.
that we how do we say it? Listening to respond. That's how we say it.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Yep.
refraining from that. The active listening means that you're trying to collect the data with the intent to learn, to assume a perspective other than your own. Now, this right here is very challenging for a lot of us,
Yeah.
especially when we have not been practicing,
Yes.
especially when we don't have any emotion, or we're lacking in emotional intelligence. We don't have those
Hmm.
emotional and self-regulation tools, or we haven't exercised them enough, right? So it's
Hmm.
hard to be mindful of what somebody else is saying. And then there's core beliefs. There's core beliefs that impinge on our ability to be active listeners. It might be something like, I learned growing up that whoever's the loudest is the one that's winning, right? And that's a core
Yeah.
belief that a child can adorn and not even know that it's there. And
Yeah.
so when you're arguing as an adult, that idea, that core belief that came from that experience, your dad yelling at your mom, yelling at you, you
Hmm.
learn that if I want to resolve a conflict, as loud
That's
as
how
I
I did it.
can,
That's how I learned.
right? So you
Yes.
can actively listen, but the first is, self-restraint, right? And then,
Absolutely.
suppressing the urge to, you know, all right, what's going to be my comeback? Also you can call it the pause. Active listening also encompasses that. And then
Hmm.
I would say that there are some actions that sort of that are sort of interweaved into this. Be accommodating, right?
Hmm.
Um, so accommodation is just really about putting the needs of others before your own. We call it being the bigger person, right? Now, I know that this is a risk right here because, as with anything, you should do it in moderation, right? But you really are taking a risk because sometimes by being, accommodating, you may risk, slipping into the habit of being accommodating just for the sake of being accommodating. So you have to really read the situation and exercise some due judgment. Hey, there's some other variables involved here when I'm, accommodating this person. So be very mindful of that. King Newborn said negotiation earlier. I think that's a good
Hmm.
one. When we talk about
Negotiation.
negotiation,
Okay.
he said negotiation, compromising. We say in our culture, we say, relationships are about compromising, right? So it's that whole, I give a little and take a little, you give a little, you take a little, right? So we try to call this a win-win situation, right?
Hmm.
But all negotiations, all compromises are not equal. It's a large assumption, right? But we're doing this as one strategy. Again, all these strategies, one size does not fit them all. Okay, so you shouldn't just be compromising all the time. Sometimes you're gonna have to be on compromise. You got to read the situation, right? Um, but a consideration for compromise, right? Let's say you give a little and then you take a little, right? Again, the assumption is that the value is equal, but that's not always the case. You could compromise on something, and in the long haul, you start developing some resentment on that
Hmm.
compromise, right? So you got to choose that wisely. Um,
Hold on,
what else?
So.
before you switch, peace,
Yeah.
guy. Hold on, I just want to add this one little part, guy. I'm sorry. So,
Mhm.
that's very important what you are outlining, because there is a difference between compromise and be willing to sacrifice, to let go of the
Ooh,
attachment
there
in
you
order
go.
to come to a new level of understanding. That's very, very important. Again, I state that only because I know when you leave a relationship and you go to a new relationship, some of the things that you used to do that was fitting for the old relationship might not fit so well for the new relationship. And as you
It
stated,
won't.
as you stated, and as I state, I am of service, but I'm only of, hold on, I am of service because I understand by me being of service, I can be served. That's the compromise. Now, the sacrifice is that I'm doing it willingly. because I understand this is what brings about the best part of you by me being of service to you, by me creating a safe place for you so you can blossom, you can develop, you can mature, you can open up to me fully. But I have to be of service of that in order for you to see this is an example or a great place for us to build. That might make sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's
even
go ahead.
friends say even with what you said though, that still takes you listening and inquiring
Yes.
with the other person to know how you can be of service to them. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Big
and
facts. Big
what
facts.
yeah what that would take. So yeah, absolutely. But also when we're talking about compromise, that is about this it makes it a win-win situation, which is what relationships are all about. Both parties have to have some a degree of satisfaction, if not total satisfaction. But I think though that as you grow in your relationship, whatever when we talk about sacrifice, we have to think about, so when you're sacrificing something, that means you're offering something else. So focus on the offering. So when you give
Mm,
something up, then what is it so talk about the offering. That's the positive part of it. What are you offering? So I'm moving this out of the way so I can be more present this way. You see, that's your offering.
exactly.
You see, so I always think about the offering. And so when you think about that, that's the act of love. But the sacrifice is like, oh, I did this for you. That's ego. You see, oh, I did
Oh.
this
I
for
can see
you.
that
You
side.
mean I did this for you? I gave this up, and you still, you
Yeah.
going. You know how people do. That's something they want to
Yeah.
hang over somebody else's head. But
Yeah.
but if you
Yeah.
think about, no, I'm offering this because I want to make sure that I'm being the best that I can be in this
Mm.
relationship. So this is my offering. You know,
Facts.
this is my offering. So that's the main thing is just understanding it, but also in compromise, what you're trying to also get to do is to be a complement
Mm.
to one another. Compromise for the sake of being complimenting one another, and that's the yin and yang. That's the yin and yang, being a compliment to one another. So I think that's one thing that I've actually found in my relationship we're very complementary. She's definitely yin and I'm yang. We are
Mm,
we're we're seems like we're opposites, but we're complementing. Uh, we don't necessarily like the same TV shows and stuff like that, but there are some that we do. I prefer anytime I sit down and watch a show, I want it to be cinematic. She like for hers to be dramatic. So, but I sit down and I watch her dramatic shows with her, and she'll sit down and watch my cinematic shows with me, and engage. You see what I'm saying? So so we give and take. We
Mm-hmm.
give and take in that kind of way. And so it's all good. And but basically this is how we resolve them. And as you said, you have to know what it is, what part you're playing, what function are you playing in the conflict, and get rid of that. Okay, change what you need to change about yourself. That's the most bold thing you can do, and it's the toughest thing you can do. It's almost like you jumping on the side of some of the other side and pointing your finger at you too. Everybody should be doing that. Everybody
Mm.
should be doing that. Self assessment. And try. This is where you try to look at it from the perspective of the other person to change your perception. You see, so yeah, so those are some powerful things that you can do. But again, that takes the emotional part, like what you had mentioned before, John.
Mm-hmm.
That's the long game. That's the long game, because emotions arise out of conditionings. That means some paradigms that you carry that are rooted in your subconscious. It's programming. So how are you going to start to undo that programming? You have to know that this programming is putting my relationships in jeopardy. So
Mm.
I got to start addressing that programming. Yeah. So that's the long game.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I got.
All right. Keep an open mind. Be flexible. Um, I'm saying that, but again, that's with consideration. I know a lot of us have fixed mindsets. Some of us are have done the work to develop a growth mindset, but yeah, that's a worthy consideration. What is your mindset? If you have a fixed
Mm-hmm.
mindset, you got to work on that. You got to work on
Mm-hmm.
that in order to develop the appropriate conflict resolution skills. We didn't even talk
Yes.
about conflict resolution as it relates just to ourselves. We've mainly spoken about it in the context of relationships outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Can you can you attend to the conflict of your relationship if you're in conflict with yourself?
Well, that's what it's all. That's what causes conflicts within the relationship because you're in conflict with yourself. That's why it always. That's why I say. That's why it always goes back to you. You
Right.
work on you. Mm-hmm.
So you're not even being kind to yourself, right? And it's manifesting in that relationship. And again, like we said in the beginning, if you are mindful of this, if you are aware of yourself in these experiences, the information is right there, right? But you have to use some due creativity to exercise those demons away, those negative aspects of you, to make that evaluation, right? So yes, if we're honest with ourselves, it's the conflicts within that create the conflicts, or at least contribute to the conflicts in your relationship. And of course, the relationship tends to show more about you than the other person, because
Mm-hmm.
we're with our thoughts and our emotions all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
um I know this one might seem condescending, but something that has helped me is using polite words, changing my lexicon. I used
Mm-hmm.
to rehearse scripts in my mind, right? And like I would have these simulated, and I still do it. I have these
Mm-hmm.
simulations in my mind of, what if this kind of argument comes up, John? How do you respond to that?
I think we
Right? I
all
do
do
that.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Oh man, I thought it was on. Okay,
No, no, no.
what you
You're not the
say?
only one. We all do that. And
Yes.
I used to always. It always used to be a negative response. Well, yeah, well, nigga, you don't know what you're talking about. And, like this, I always imagine
Yeah.
me responding or whatever. But I still do it, but it's that's not my response. I always, because
Yeah.
that's me practicing and contemplating
Yeah.
my
Exactly.
response. Mm-hmm.
All right, so cool. We're in agreement then. That's a great
Yes.
strategy. Rehearse it in your mind, but hey, with just remember, it's not real. It's in your mind, y'all. Okay, you're
Mm-hmm.
rehearsing like, all right, they're gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this. Like, there's a lot of assumptions there. You're assuming that you truly know this person, like you've studied their habits. So
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a fictitious person, all right, you could challenge yourself and kind of numb yourself to the reactions, because it's like, all right, your brain don't know the difference between it being out there and it, right? So hey, it could work. It could work. Just throwing that out there. We talked
you know,
about making. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna say that makes me think about you ever seen that movie Dumb and Dumber with Jim
Mm-hmm.
Carrey when he goes up,
Yeah.
he how he falls in love with that woman whose suitcase he ended up having. He finds her, and and then he thinks about this thing that he wanted to say to her, which was something like, I love you. I want to make love to you. You make me feel like a schoolboy and so forth. But then when he really gets in her face, he said, I want to make love to a schoolboy. So it ends up coming out the wrong way.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
rehearsed it in his head, but it's just in the moment because of the shock, it came out the wrong way.
Ooh.
But sometimes that happens too.
Yeah.
Even though we rehearse in our heads, because the situation really doesn't. It's not going to be like we think it's going to be in our
Yeah.
heads, and so
Yeah.
it comes out a bit different.
Yeah.
That's a funny
That
movie though. I
yeah,
love
that's a
watching it.
fair consideration right there. That the way that it
Yeah.
plays out in your head, you could have the
Hmm.
response, but yeah, you still got to test it out, right?
Which goes
But
back to what you said before. Be flexible.
Yeah,
Gotta
because it's
be
like, all
flexible.
right, you gotta reflect on that, right? So
Hmm.
that's another thing, if you're really serious about making that change, this is a system, right, that you have to
Hmm.
develop for yourself. So that's why I was saying conflict management, because it's a system, right? And it's, even though it's just one problem right here, it seems to be perpetuating in a lot of spheres of your life, right? So developing that system, that way of thinking, hey, yeah, and you're programming yourself, right? Oh
Hmm.
man, there was another question in the group, right?
Hmm.
Regarding how we acquire conflict resolution skills and examples, right?
Hmm.
And we've been watching the Steve Harvey show. We've watched the Bertie Mac show, right? We just been going to the classics, and something that it just kind of thing when this topic comes up, and I'm like, we look at TV to inform us on how or what social problems we have and how we solve them, right? Because again, the art reflects the life. And so we don't know all the way, at least. We don't know what are like urban problems, what are rural social problems, right? And so television gives us a picture of what it looks like. And, all right, boom, conflict, 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 conflict. But this is how they solve their problems. And so if you're
Hmm.
a kid watching this stuff, you start to learn, oh, okay. And even if it's fictitious, like this is not out of anywhere real, but it's still the fact that we're programming ourselves and learning what
That's right.
behaviors are, right?
Hmm.
So that's something else to consider, folks, is your programming. It don't
Yeah.
matter
What's your
if it's
source of information? Hmm.
mm, right.
Yeah.
Be mindful of your programming. TV, YouTube, music, books, any form of media. It can be art, it can be artistic, or it can be scientific. But yeah, be mindful of the media that you consume that informs you of your conflict resolution skills.
Because
But
you can
with that,
choose what that is. You can choose
mhm,
that. Nobody's forcing things on, even though everything is out there. And you have to understand, like I always, like I've said, and I said this to my students even just yesterday. But the two faculties within you, if people have control over it, they got control over you. That's your intellectual faculty, and your imaginative faculty, which these media sources actually have control over. They're actually feeding you intellectually, and they're dictating your imagination, the contents of your imagination. So, those are two very powerful aspects of you, very powerful, because they in turn going to influence how you emote.
mm,
So those are your tools of programming right there. Every hypnotist would tell you that's exactly what they do. And when we watch TV and listen to music, we get into the theta state, or what we call the state of trance, which is a hypnotic state, and it automatically programs our subconscious. So just know that that's happening anytime you watch TV or listen to music or whatever, or looking at any kind of social media, and we begin to act and reflect those ideas. So be very, very mindful, as John is saying, as to what you allow to influence you. So be selective. Be
mhm.
selective.
Now I'm gonna throw
So
out one more because we're coming up on 2 hours. Um, Take inventory of your strengths and weaknesses. Right, figure
mhm.
out what just pulling from your successes and your failures, and this is presuming that you care. All right, this is presuming that you care about your personal development, your spiritual development, and the development of others. This is very presumptuous, okay? But if you are seeking to improve your relationships and to improve yourself, you're going to take an inventory of what you're good at in terms of conflict resolution and what you're bad at. And then also, what you could use more of, right? It may not
Uh-huh.
even be all right, strengths and weak, but right. And you're going to work on everything simultaneously. And it's just it's
Mhm.
one small change. It could be something like, hey, I'm gonna learn to listen a little bit more. My homeboy Milk had told me, with his ADHD, he had this tendency to, interrupt people a lot. And so he said he worked on that one thing. So that's all it really has to be, folks, is that you can work on one thing at a time. I need to
But he
be
need to hold
better
a
at
master class because I know a lot of people who do that. Once he figure it out, tell him to hold a master class on that. I'd send a whole bunch of people his way.
yeah. But I mean, you got if you guys are intentional about this, just look at yourself, see what you got, work with that. It does
Mm-hmm.
take a lot of courage to look, especially at your weaknesses, but it does take that courage. But when you take ownership of them, they don't, like, no one can really affect you regarding that once you take ownership of them. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
hard part for a lot of us, is that we don't want to take ownership for the weaknesses. We want to hide them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, take ownership of them and you will be empowered to change them, and
I
you will
say.
feel, you know, yeah.
I say. That's it. That's how you love
Close,
them, right there.
closing comments, gentlemen.
King.
Oh, I'm peace. I'm peace. I'm good.
Well, I think that's the goal. Everybody be peace. You
Be
know.
peace. Yep. Yep.
And I still would say that if you're having a hard time with this, bringing about conflict resolution, seek some help. Seek a mediator, a counselor,
Mm,
even a therapist. A coach, whatever. Seek a mediator, somebody who's not going to be biased to either side, but who can actually bring a viable solution to the conflict. And so and again, look me up. That's what I do, and I
mm.
have to say I'm pretty good at it. But look me up, DM me or what have you. And but there are many more out here. John has a great idea of how these things. He's very good at it as well. So look up John. You know, and we're here for you and here for each other as well. So yeah, so just make that happen. I think you guys will be good. Anyway, that's my closing comments.
All right, so let's do it like this. We just want to be fair, don't want to be fearless. We want to be feared, misunderstanding what fear is, want to be feared so much, don't want to be loved, but get upset when nobody does. We just want to be feared like the God we revere. Mm. You hate yourself so much, you pray the love is insincere. It makes you feel some type of way, and you're in love with the feeling. Fearing the healing taking place, taking away your right to complain about your circumstances, leaving only you to blame. You fear being yourself. You fear nobody knows your name but hopes they keep it out their mouth. Such confusing times. We don't want to be here but fear to leave it all behind. Perhaps we need no fear, no doubt, no fear, no doubt, no fear, no doubt. We just want to be trusted without having to trust the people who trust us. We want vengeance to be our justice. Talking eye for an eye, violating your own. You're losing more than your sight, so it's really soul for a soul. Losing your foot in. Ask Bill Cosby. He get back what you put in. Actually, that's wrong, because I could trust you when you couldn't. Reciprocate the same, but does that mean that I shouldn't? I'm vintage Jay-Z with these reasonable doubts, but why do you get offended? The truth never needed defending. Are you
Mm.
pretending? Is it really worth the fuss? To rather be unemployed than earn somebody's trust? They abduct your freedom to doubt, crucify you for conspiracies you don't believe in, their loyalty, the science, their own achievements. I learned that people don't merely lie without a reason, just reasons that we disagree with. So do we need no fear, no doubt, no fear, no doubt, no fear, no doubt. See, it's unintelligent to be blindly obedient, equally unintelligent to be blindly disobedient. Fear can protect you, it could serve you. Wait, I heard that the police could do the same. It's kind of strange. Fear can make you smaller than you really are. Doubt can bring you closer to the truth when you're really far. Doubt removes power for something to exist in your mind. So I don't doubt a person, but what they represent. Beliefs will persist on the other hand. See, you don't fear the unknown. You fear what you don't understand. So if you don't know and you fear that, you won't grow. And if you pretend that you do know and you don't know, you can't grow. So I got two questions to think about. Do I know fear? Do I know doubt? I hope you know fear, no doubt. Grow up and grow out. Salute.
Salute. All right.
Peace, peace, peace.
Peace.
Ashe.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and bring us out. Hey, y'all, this is things that people don't want to talk about. This is John Skywalker, Saba Diamond, King Newborn, and God Level. We will see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.